Hi, I'm Christopher, a research software engineer with Research Software Workshops, and it's a very warm welcome to Introducing Version Control with Git, Part 4. We're now on to creating a version control directory. The link to the material is at the bottom, and if you go to the Creating a Version Control Directory section, you should find a web page that looks something like this, that contains all the material we will be working through. Now again, we're going to be at the command line, so we're going to be typing commands in, and so hopefully you have git installed. Git --version gives you a version showing it's installed, and you've already configured it according to what we said in the last workshop set part. Now Git is a tool that is used to version control a directory of files. So it doesn't version control individual files, instead it version controls an entire directory, so all of the files, subdirectories, files and subdirectories within that directory. So to start, we must first create a directory that will contain the files that will be version controlled. Now you can call the directory we're going to create anything you want. Now for this workshop we're going to call the directory versioned_dir, and so to create the directory we need to use the mkdir makedir command, and if we type makedir mkdir versioned_dir, this would create a directory called versioned_dir. Note that we've used an underscore in the directory name, so versioned_dir instead of versioned_dir. That's because you should not use spaces in directory names, as this will make it much harder for the command window to interpret the commands that you type. So I've got mkdir versioned_dir, and I now hit return, and nothing is printed to the screen. That means we have successfully created this new versioned_dir directory. We can now change into this directory using the cd command. Cd is short for change directory, and it's cd versioned_dir, as we have here. If I hit return, nothing will appear to happen, but notice on my computer it tells me that I have now changed into this versioned_ directory. You may not see this kind of indicator on your computer, it really is computer specific, but if nothing is printed then that means you have successfully changed into the new directory. This new directory should be empty because it's a new directory that does not contain any files. To check that it is truly empty, we will use the ls command. Ls means list the contents of the directory. And if we hit return, nothing is printed to the screen. This means we are indeed in this new empty directory, which is called versioned_dir. Note that you could have created this directory using Windows Explorer or a file GUI, but in this case we're going to work in the terminal by typing the commands. As I said in the beginning, there are only 3 commands that we will be using within this workshop that are general commands: mkdir, cd and ls, and we've now used them. For the rest of this workshop we should be using Git Commands, and we'll be teaching you the 10 Git commands. So by default, now that we're in this versioned_dir directory, by default directories are not version controlled. Nothing is looking at the versions of the files in this directory. So what we have to do is we have to tell Git that we want to start version controlling the files in this directory. We do that by initializing Git using the Git Init command. This means we type git space init, and now when we press return, you'll see that Git has initialized an empty Git repository in our versioned_dir directory. This means now Git knows that this is a directory in which it should be monitoring the versions of files, and it should be checking the versions of files and then giving you the tools necessary to save versions of those files. Now by default, there are no files in this directory, there are no versions, hence why we have an empty Git repository. Now repository may be a word that you are less familiar with. It's actually more of a sort of a lesser used English word, which means a place in which things are stored. So a repository is a place in which things are stored. In Git, the repository is the place in where the versions of files will be stored, and in this case it is empty. Okay, we have now initialized version control within our directory versioned_dir, and we've now used our very first proper Git command, Git Init. What we will do through this workshop is we will build up a Git cheat sheet. The Git cheat sheet will list all of the commands, the Git commands that we are using, and that way provide a handy way for you to refer back to them in the future. Now this was the first Git command that you needed to know. There are really just a small number, just 10, that you need to know to become proficient in Git. To help you learn them, we'll build this up, and indeed what I suggest you do is you open a document on your desktop, maybe called Git Cheat Sheet, maybe a Word document, whatever type of document you wish, and then copy and paste in this cheat sheet so you have it always available for yourself. So the first entry in the Git cheat sheet is Git Init, and this is the command to tell Git to start version controlling the files in a directory. It initializes Git within that directory. Okay, that's the end of this part. I look forward to seeing you in the next part of the workshop.